In this video, we're going to continue porting over the tests from the Tour of Heroes Angular tutorial project. Going to be porting them from Protractor to WebDriver.io. If you've been watching my previous videos, this is just a continuation of the porting work that we've been doing. As usual, got a few notes here. As you can tell, they're getting smaller and smaller. It's kind of the same old with a few little twists in this particular set of tests. So we're doing the heroes sets of tests, porting those over. And like I said, there's a few little tricks that we'll have to be aware of. So let's jump in here. So we're going to go back to our app E2E spec file. This is the original code. And we're going to look for our hero tests. So we're going to bring this block of code over as we do. And we'll just drop this in underneath the last set of tests. And as usual, let's close that out so we can actually start running all of these incrementally. And I'll show you a little trick we can do and where we can run just this describe block, so we won't have to run all the previous code. But I'll get there in just a second once we make a few corrections. Changing that to before, like we've done in the previous videos. Changing this to URL. Definitely refer back to my previous videos if this change doesn't make sense to you. Okay. So let's go ahead. We've got some additional things to add to the page elements function. So let's start adding those things. And I believe it's this. App Heroes Ref. Yep, so let's go add that. And while we're in here, we're going to reorganize this a little bit to match the original one. At least the kind of the structure will have it match the original. But we need to update this to be using array notation. And that should fix that. And then, yeah, let's reorganize this a little bit. So I believe that's separate. And let's see what else they do here. So the heroes ref is above app heroes. So let's move that around. And I'm using a keyboard shortcut here. I can't remember if it's the default, but what I'm doing is an Alt and then an up arrow. I don't think that's the default key map, so you might have to play around with your key map in VS Code. But Alt up and down kind of changes. I can move lines of code around. That makes it real convenient to reorganize, restructure things. All right, so we've got app heroes, then all heroes, which I don't think we have yet. Top heroes moves up, so we'll move that here, and I think that's good enough for now. Okay, so let's see what else do we need to change. Oh, pretty typical things. We need to change this to be using WebDriver.io's to be present. And we'll move the await to the outside. So like I said, some of this stuff is going to be pretty typical. If you've been watching my previous videos, we've been making these types of changes before. So nothing really new. Same thing with this. We're going to remove, unfortunately, we have to remove the nice message, like error or failure message that would show up. WebDriver.io doesn't support that natively. There are some ways to do it, and I'll show that in some future videos. Size, and of course I already forgot what the size was, so let's take a look. Where are we? Hero tests, looks like 9 heroes. Move this out, and we need to bring over the all heroes. We don't have that one yet. And it's an all, so that's a double $sign. And I think that's the right order. Yep, all heroes after app heroes. Cool. Okay, so that should complete that it block. So let's go ahead and let's run them all, and then I'm going to show you how to run just this describe block in a second here. All right. Perfect. So we got a new set of tests and a new single test in there that we just completed. So that's great. That's been ported. And let me show you how to run just this block. So we want to copy this text, the description of the describe block. And we're going to go into WDIO conf.ts. And if you scroll through here, we're using Mocha as the default test runner or test framework. And so somewhere within your WDIO config, probably around line 171, unless you've modified other things, there should be a Mocha options. And we're going to add a new option called grep, and we'll put in a string that we want to search for. And that will run just that one matching test. So if we run this again, you'll see that it only runs that one block, that one describe block. And as you can see, it ran app.ts and it only ran that single describe block, which is super nice because we're going to be working in just the hero tests for this video. So we're going to just concentrate on that describe block and we don't have to run the other ones. Okay. So let's keep going. Copy this over. Auto format. And then we've got a few things to bring over, it looks like. Maybe just this. We'll see how it goes. So the get hero li element by ID needs to come over. As usual, I'm going to do a control click or command click to get to the implementation. Copy that. And just drop it at the end of the file. Not too concerned about how this file is organized at this point. We'll do a future video on that. All right, so we need to change element finder. This needs to be a chainable promise, element promise, something like that. Let's see if we can find it. It's not seeing it. Chainable promise element is what we need. So it's not auto importing it for some reason. Chainable. What was it? Chainable element. This is what happens when I don't have autocomplete. Okay, yeah. Odd. It's not automatically seeing it. So we'll have to import it manually. Not a big deal. That's funny. Okay. So let's import it. Import chainable. Actually, let's just copy it. From WebDriver.io. What? It's not here either. Driver.io. Oh, there we go. Got to spell it correctly. Okay. So that should fix that. Perfect. Now we need to do a little bit of conversion here. So this is doing CSS containing text, which is from Protractor, but we don't have that in WebDriver.io. So we'll make a small modification here. Go const span for ID, and we'll go, we're gonna just grab the span. And we'll get the text of the span that has a class of badge on it. My mistake. Something like that. Okay, and then we need to do, so they're doing a little bit of XPath off of that. So we'll just convert that to $, and fix the parentheses, and that should fix that function, that helper function. That looks good. Okay, so what else do we need to do? Okay, so same old, same old. Let's remove this. Make this to be present. Move the await. This just needs to have an await. And then I think the rest is good. So let's try running that. Cool. All right. So we can see our two tests, part of the hero tests. They are now passing. So that looks good. Let's keep on moving. Okay, update hero name. So this came from, we already did the porting of this piece from last video. So this should just continue to work. One of the previous tests used this same sort of functionality and expectations, so we don't really need to do anything special there, but let's go ahead and run it and just make sure it still works. Perfect, 3 passing tests. All right, onward. Okay, a few things here. So button text, we can handle that. We've done something similar in some of the previous videos. So this is going to become a $, and a button equals. Again, that's shorthand for look for a specific type of HTML element, a button, and that has the text save as a part of that button. So that all kind of comes together. That looks good. We're not going to use this. And I think that's fine. Oh, and now we have another helper we need to bring over. So let's take a look at that. Copy this. I'm pretty sure this is fairly similar to the one we just adjusted, the one above it. So we can probably copy some of this stuff. So this is the same, so we'll copy this. We'll change the return type. And we really just need to change this out to a $, and use that XPath. Again, WebDriver IO is pretty smart. It'll know that these are XPaths. So we don't have to do anything special for those. That should be good there. And I think that's everything. We'll leave this alone. Again, there's probably a way to optimize that. We'll come back to that later. I think we're good, so let's run that. Sweet, we're up to 4 passing tests for that section. All right, so shows, all right, deletes is the next piece. I think this gets a little bit more complicated. There's quite a few things this test is doing, so let's just jam through each one of these. So to hero array, I believe that's another helper function. It is, so let's copy that over. All right, now this is where it gets kind of interesting. So this is expecting an array of elements. So we need to convert this over to something that comes from WebDriver IO. I believe, let's take a look. I think they have an element array. I think that's what we need here. I think that remains the same. And then it looks like we have a new creational method for the hero class. So let's bring that over as well. So scroll back up to the top. We'll add this to the partially ported hero class. Drop that in kind of towards the top, right underneath the constructor. Just try to keep things in the similar structure as the original code. Same thing, we need to update this. So this is element finder. So this is a single element. We can convert that over. And that's just element. And then we need to convert these. So this is an all. So it's a double $sign. And there, it looks like Protractor allows for some pretty nice shorthand here. So they're getting the text of all of the anchors. We'll have to convert that a little bit. WebDriver IO doesn't support that natively. Okay. So probably need to do something along the lines of a map. And I believe this needs to be asynchronous. We can probably just do something like E get text. Something like that. Let's see if this makes sense. So we're waiting on the collection of anchors, and then we're going to use a map to a bunch of get text. And so this is just E for element. So that should work. The rest of the code should be fine. All right, so let's keep going. And I think I need to update this still. Okay, yes. So this needs to be the promise that comes in, not the resolved promise. And so let's see, this needs to be chainable. And of course, my IE is being a pain and not auto importing. There's also a chainable promise element array that we need. So let's add an import for that. Chainable promise array. That's exactly the one I need. And then it's a WebDriver IO element array. That's what we need. Okay, there we go, much better. No more compilation errors. At least in this part. We've got a few more things to figure out. Okay, so that looks good. Okay, so this needs to change. It's a single element, but it's using button text. Not a big deal, we can fix that. Button equals. That fixes all that. Another is present, so let's change this to be present, to be present. Move the await. And this is going to be using one of WebDriver IO's matchers, so something like to be element array of size. I think it was 8. Let's double check. Where are we? Hero tests. Deletes 8. Okay. Yep. 8. That all looks good. I don't think any of the rest of this needs to change. All right, so let's try running that. No more compilation errors. Cool. And one thing to note here, it is deleting something from our application. So in theory, this is kind of a destructive test and changes the state of our application. However, the tutorial uses a sort of a stubbed out database layer, so there's no actual database. So none of these changes are persisted. So when the app relaunches or if you refresh the page, the thing we deleted actually comes back. So it doesn't truly destroy anything and therefore doesn't change the state of the application. So these tests will keep running over and over again and they'll pass. Because the state, like I said, the state of the application does not change as you refresh it. So we'll run it again just to kind of prove that point. So as you can see, it still passes. Okay, moving on. A few more things in here. One thing I noticed is this is supposed to be adding back the Magneto character, but for whatever reason, the test code has Alice as a new character name, which is sort of off. It doesn't really sync up with the title of the it block. So I'm going to change this. Magneto. I believe I spelled, or I guess it's Magneta with an A. My mistake. Okay. Not a big deal. But just to kind of keep I like to make sure the descriptions of these tests actually line up with what's going on. Okay, so let's change these. This is just a straight CSS, so we can just put in a $sign here. We do need to change this. Send keys isn't valid for WebDriver IO. So this one's going to be a set value. Since we're just, we're not appending anything, we're actually going to set an empty field. This input field will be empty when it arrives here. And we don't need the extra await. WebDriver IO does a pretty good job of knowing when we're chaining things together and using the awaits properly. So we don't need to have double. And we got a button text here. So we'll do a button equals. And we'll click that. And okay, that looks good. We need to remove this. Unfortunately, we can't have any special messages with those assertions. And same thing with this. That should be good. And we might run into a snag here. It's adding something and the code is somewhat asynchronous, so the timing might be off here. So let's give it a try first, and if the timing's off, we'll fix that. Okay, so we have a failure. And it's failing at line 165, which is here. And that's because the count is off. So yeah, so this is most likely a timing issue. We expected 9, only received 8. So what we need to do is a little bit, we're going to convert some of this. So some of this is going to turn into a wait until. And that way it'll wait for the correct number of heroes, the total of 9, and then it'll continue. And if it doesn't find a total of 9, if it finds anything else, it'll fail, it'll time out. So we'll still get the failure that we want. So let's see here. We're going to do await, browser, wait until. This is going to be asynchronous. And I believe there's a few things. I believe heroes after, yeah, is kind of used throughout here. So we need to have a reference of this. So we'll do a let heroes after. And we'll pull this code in there. So what do we need to do? We need to change the expectation really needs to go away. We can't really have an expectation in this. We need to return something. So we're going to return some logical comparison here. It's equal to number of heroes plus 1. So that's really what we're curious about, is do the total number of heroes increase by 1 because we're adding a new hero. So we'll remove that. I think that'll do it. So we get all the heroes, we take a look at the length of them, and the length should be now equal to the number of heroes plus 1 since we added an additional one. And we're updating the heroes after, oh, wait a second. This needs to be like that, I believe. And what is this complaining about? That's okay. We'll leave that alone for now. Just complaining about the type. Okay, so that should work. That should allow the rest of this code to use heroes after. And heroes after will only be the correct number when it hits, when this piece of logic is true. And so we'll wait until we'll spin on that until it's true. Otherwise it'll time out, so it'll fail, like I said, and that would be good because it means we didn't get the right number of heroes. Or it'll pass, and heroes after will be the correct number that we expect. And so then the rest of these will work. All right, so let's try that out. Sweet. We're up to 6 passing tests, so that's looking really good. All right. And last but not least, for this block, we've got some, looks like some code that's going to be checking some styling, which is kind of interesting. I've got sort of mixed feelings about this. I'd love to hear what you folks think. Typically, I don't find a lot of value in testing sort of layout and UI design sort of stuff. It's usually better to do that visually. It's faster and cheaper. But code's here, so let's just port it over. Again, let me know what you folks think. If you find value in it, or maybe you've got some other techniques that you use to do sort of visual checks, I'd love to hear about them. Always love to learn new things. Okay, so pretty typical stuff. As we dive into this, there are some adjustments we'll have to make, but we need to at least fix this, and this is pretty typical. This is just a double $sign with button text. So we know how to do that. Something like that, if I can type. And then these all need to change. It's not get CSS value. I think it's get CSS property, if I'm not mistaken. Let's take a look here. Yeah, so get CSS property. So let's copy that. Let's see if we can do something a little bit fancy with the IDE. I believe if you select one of those, and then depending on your key mapping, and I can't remember it, but there is a select all occurrences. So boom, we've got all those selected. Should be able to paste in the correct method name, and it just replaces all those things that were selected. So that's cool. I like that. A little shortcut there for you. Okay, and so then the values that are returned out of get CSS property, they're objects. So we need to do a little bit of conversion in here so that we can still use these matchers. So for font family, it's a little bit interesting. We're going to want to use, there's a parsed property that we want to use, and then a string property. So we want to use all of those things. That's going to give us a string with commas in it, similar to what was being expected before. The only difference is they normalize the case, so they make it lowercase. So just make sure to adjust that. And then we can also remove the extra await. We just need to make sure that this block, or I'm sorry, this piece of this code is in parentheses so that it's the await is part of this whole thing. And after we're done waiting, then we can start parsing out stuff. So just make sure the parentheses are correct. So for the rest of these, border, padding, border radius, etc., there is a value property we can use, and that seems to do the trick. So let's, oops, deleted too many parentheses. So just, again, make sure you got the parentheses correct. Okay. All of these should be value. Okay, and let's change this. This is button text single element, so single $sign, single $sign. I can talk. I swear. Okay, there's that. And similar stuff here. So we'll do parsed string. And then these will be value. I'll just update these and then I'll remove the extra awaits. And we'll auto format. Okay. I think I've got all that dialed in, so let's run this again. Well, I might have missed something. All right, so let's take a look. Ah, okay. So this is line 183. That's this right here. And what we're seeing is we expect it to be this, which is actually shorthand for padding. And if we were to expand this out, which is what WebDriver IO does, it expands these things out for you. It's really gonna be two of these, 210 pixels. So this is, I believe, this is top right and bottom left if you combine them. So we just need another one, which is what we're actually getting. So that is correct. So let's rerun that. Oh boy, maybe not. Oh, silly me. Gotta make sure these are lowercase. And I believe if we were using, again, we'll come back through here and try to optimize and simplify some of these in a later video. I think WebDriver IO has a matcher for strings where you can actually tell it to be case insensitive. There we go. 7 passing tests. Everything's passing now. Cool. All right. So I think we got everything. Let's do some cleanup. All right. So we can remove this whole block now. Bunch of code. This whole thing's ported over. Let's remove it. And let's take a look. Do we have any methods or functions that need to be removed? Looks like it. So update hero name and detail view. That must have been from some old code. We don't need that anymore. Must have ported that over in a previous video. And here we go. Add hero to name, or add to hero name. That I think was old as well, so we can remove that. And we don't need, wow, we don't need quite a few of these now. Actually, don't need any of these. That's great. I love that. We're almost done with the port. Probably one more video. Yeah, it looks like one more video I'll create, and we'll walk through the last set of tests. The progressive hero search set of tests, we'll port those over. Okay, so anything in here? Looks like we don't need this anymore. Probably don't need the suffix anymore. Great. And we'll run an import cleanup as well. So we'll reorganize those. Okay, I think we're good there. Let's go ahead and let's remove this filtering that we added, and we're gonna run all of the tests now. Make sure we didn't do something strange by accident. You know me, I like to make sure that I'm in a stable state before I commit. Sweet, 18 passing tests. Pretty fast too, 12 seconds, not too bad. All right, so let's take a look at our diffs. Make sure we didn't add some strange code or remove something by accident that we shouldn't have. We reorganized our imports, removed some constants that we're no longer using. Looks like it just formatted our constructor. We removed a big block of code. That was the test we just ported over in this video. And remove some of those helper functions. So that all looks good. Let's, first of all, before we go too far, let's create a branch. This is port. I think this was heroes tests, call end-to-end tests. I think that's right. What are we doing? We're doing the heroes test. Okay, that's right. So that's a good branch name, and we'll put ported heroes tests, end-to-end tests. And we'll add some description. Removed ported code. And I don't think we really did any like optimizations or anything like that. So this is probably all pretty standard. Added the new from LI. Well, ported the from LI. It's not new. Just ported stuff over. Organized. Okay, we can put a little note in there. Maybe organized. Get page elements. Returned object. How about organized the properties? Organized that returned objects properties. Maybe something like that. Properties. Okay. And of course, finished porting heroes tests. And that's fine. Those are all part of the port. So that's good. And we'll commit that. Publish that branch. Okay. We'll close out some of these diffs, those working tree versions. And I think we are good to go. As usual, comments, questions, concerns, whatever's on your mind, hit me up. Let me know. I will try to help you. All right, till next time. Peace.